Okay, so what are we looking at? We're looking at the map board for this Warhammer, the board game. I was interested in this game back when it came out, maybe 2017, roundabout, and I played the video game a couple of times, or the computer game a couple of times, and was very interested in this game. And then I started reading reviews. I didn't kickstart it. I very rarely kickstart games. I started reading reviews and started being somewhat skeptical of the game. Started having concerns about the game because the game is a very interesting topic. We're really we're trying. I guess the game attempts to simulate civilians living in a war zone, and that's a interesting topic for sure, and a topic dear to my heart because I have some talk to people living in war zones, having good friends living in war zones, principally in Iraq. One that lives here now in the United States. So, I know a little bit about it, although I have not been a civilian living in a war zone. So I thought it was interesting. Then I started having some concerns about the game. I started reading a lot of reviews, early reviews of it, and I would read stuff like, well, this is art. I kept reading that. This is art. It's irrelevant how good of a game it is or how good of a game system it is because it's art. And that concerned me. I even had a friend say, hey, they had played it. They said, look, it's not about winning the game. It is about the journey. And when people start talking like that, it really concerns me. I start thinking, well, there's not a game here. It's it's just supposed to be something that is thought-provoking or whatever, but there's not a game here. And that automatically gave me negative thoughts about it. Well, the second thing that concerned me, because I kept reading things, I kept reading some article. I can't even find the article now. I wish I could. That was like, well, this deconstructs the war game, the war theme game genre. And when I start reading things like that, I start thinking, or that what we're trying to do, deconstruct war, simulating war, or having war theme in games, whether it be video games or what? Are we trying to, do we want this to be an exercise of sitting around and talking about how primitive warfare is and how anybody that is part of a military is a primitive Neanderthal, and talking about how war's always bad, because it's not. I've always said, only a privileged few in this world can afford to be a pacifist. A Pacific society would be the first society someone will roll over. So yeah, you can only be a pacifist if you under very privileged circumstances. So yeah, I wasn't at all pleased with, I wasn't at all wanting to do that, make that an exercise of talking about how bad war is and how it's always a horrible thing, and how if we just would stop with warfare. I wasn't about that, especially in the game. You can have your political beliefs or whatever, and you can have a game like that. I just don't want to be a part of it. That's what I was afraid of, and I kept hearing this narrative game, this kept story-driven game, and it kept bringing me back to thoughts of, the RPG, when the story games came about, how they were just these pretentious exercises, is talking around and validating each other as being superior minds or whatever. The story games, I just never got. If people are into that pretentious stuff, that's fine. It's just not my bag. Never will be. And the third thing was that I thought that the game may be too negative. Everything I heard about it's so depressing. People would say it's so I really felt that the game may be far too negative. My perros. Oye, Mateo, calla. And so that was my those were my thoughts on that. I was concerned. Yeah, that would just be too negative. And I've talked to many civilians that had been in war zones. I've never been a civilian myself in a war zone, but I talked to living in war zones, principally in Iraq. Still have a good friend who lives here now. She was a girl when that war, the second Gulf War, broke out, or came about, whatever we want to call it, whatever happened there. Let's trying to stay away from one way or the other. And not everything's negative necessarily. There are slivers of hope and good times within that mess. So I didn't want it. I thought it might be too negative. So I kind of wanted to make a video going over the components a little bit, how good the components are, and my initial thoughts. Like I said, I played this fully 3 times, and a couple more times. Well, first of all, components are good. You got these minis, plastic minis. I understood that you had resin to represent your character. You start out just like the video game. It's a direct port from the video game, almost, except not time-based, turn-based instead of time-based. So come out with these. These are your characters. You start with 3 of them in the house. They represent your house, and these are going to represent your locations to go scavenging. But these are plastic. I wanted to paint them, but you know what? I thought, it goes really great with the aesthetic of the game if they are gray. But you're going to be making very many gray decisions. Not a lot of black and white in this game. So yeah. Some of the other components you've got representing wood. Components for building things. These are like aluminum, wood, plastic. This is water and a noise marker, because noise plays a part in, if you can't see, noise plays a big part of your scavenging. Making noise is somebody can find you, maybe even a soldier, find you doing that. These are water and that. So the components, we're talking, top-notch stuff here. Cards. Here's a couple character cards. Character cards, they're your cards are a lot of cards in this game. Everything you see here represents a deck somewhere. Even in the house, you're going to represent individual cards. A lot of cards in the game. Cards are decent card stock, normal cards. You would, they're not warped or anything, but they're not extra thick. A lot of chits in the game too. A lot of counters. Really nice thick counters. Good laminated feeling counters. So happy with those. Happy with the production. Production value top notch. Well, were any of my fears alleviated this thus far? Well, I do think there is a game here, and it might be a pretty good game. It seems to be. I'm gonna have to play it more and get better versed at it and get better at the game. But there seems to be a game here, not just a artsy fartsy exercise. It does seem to be a game, and I do think it's not. It's definitely not a game where you're sitting around talking about how bad war is. I think it's legitimately trying to simulate an experience of civilians in a war-torn area. And thirdly, I think, and so my second fear of being just a deconstruction of war-themed games, I don't think that's what it is. It doesn't seem to be that at all. And thirdly, is it too negative? It seems to be more negative than I would like it to be, maybe. But again, I played it 3 times fully through. There's a, it is a, this over here, show you. It's a, like, Ambush or Barbarian Prince or whatever. It is a narrative-driven game, so I haven't read just a portion of the narrative. There, it's the book. There's 1947 paragraphs there called the Book of Scripts. This is the engine driver. This is pretty good. It's pretty good. My negative first impressions of it, not real big on the rule book. I like the kind of like the journal style, but I don't know. It's just didn't like how. I just not a big fan of the rule book. Not a big fan of the combat. Although combat takes, a back seat in this game to other things: scavenging, staying warm, defending yourself against people trying to raid you. That's which is somewhat combat, but actual combat takes second place. But I'm not a big fan of the combat system. It's they got combat dice, specialty dice, so I'm never a huge fan of. But this would be if you're on your fists. This is going to be if you are going to use that if you're unarmed. You're going to use this if you have a bladed weapon. Man, I whiffed on that one too. Look at that. Whiffed on both. This would be if you have, that one would have, if I had a pistol, I'd have got somebody good there. And the red one would be with a firearm. Okay, so that's, I don't see why you'd have to make those specialty dice. I really thought a CRT would have worked just as good, but that's me. From a very big wargamer perspective. So yeah, I guess other people may not like that, but what I'm wanting to do here, I'm wanting to review this. I didn't do an unboxing just because there's so many of them online, but I was wanting to review it. So I'm wanting to give a review. This again, components and initial impressions. Components, and we'll go on. Maybe I will play a couple of not full turns, but show you some of the nuts and bolts of the game as we get along, as I get further along with it, get more familiar with it. But it is seems to be an okay game, a very different game than any other kind of war conflict game. It is a conflict game. And a worker placement game. It's hard, but at its heart, there's conflict there. So yeah, different than almost any other game on that I've played. I've played other games that are similarly straddle the line to war theme and a Euro theme. This really doesn't have a Euro theme. This was this really not Euro mechanics here. Has a but war and Euros, but this is different than even those, and seems like it could be good. So I'm gonna stick around with it, and I'll give you some more thoughts on it. Yeah. So there it is. It's War of Mine. I'll be back probably next week with another video on this. So y'all have a great night. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.